was one of John Houseman's chosen few at Juilliard, played great classical repertory on the road in the 70s, and by 1979 she was the Tony-winning star of Evita. She's done more David Mamet plays than any female in the universe, updated Ethel Merman in Anything Goes, and is giving the performance of her amazing life right now in the hit revival of Sweeney Todd. Welcome to Women in Theater. I'm Linda Weiner, theater critic of Newsday, and our guest today is Patti LuPone, who proclaimed at 26 that she would rather go on unemployment than be called a starlet, and she never was. Do you remember that kid?
No.
Do you remember her? I remember her.
Oh, well, I probably remember her, but I don't remember saying that.
Yeah,
You
said it to me.
In our first interview.
I believe it was.
Well, and I still believe that.
Don't you? I mean,
Totally.
I mean, and preface that when you were in the acting company and in the 70s on the road at Ravinia in Chicago, and
when the pavilion looked different than it looks now.
Well,
well, it's a little more sophisticated now, but it looked like a sort of a barn.
Yeah,
with benches.
That was the Murray Theater next door. But anyway, we only have 30 minutes. We'll do Chicago another time.
Okay.
All right. Part 2, Chicago. And I remember 1975, you were a huge star. You were in 1 week, you were in country western musical, The Robber Bridegroom. You were the ambisexual son of Edward II.
Edward III.
Third.
It was my parents.
Oh, you were the third.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yes, you were the third. And I think you were also doing Time of Your Life at the time.
Wow. Yeah.
And that would be like, we could just go every night and see you on stage and think that that is what the theater is.
And shouldn't it be?
And how shocking was it when you got off the bus and out of the road and began to actually see what the theater's really like?
It was, Linda, it was. I remember saying to Peter Neufeld of Gatchel Neufeld General Management when I was in working, I was shocked, and it was a bona fide flop. And I said to Peter, I know why I'm being difficult, because I wasn't trained for this. I was trained for something ideal. Even though the time on the road was hard, it was brutal, it was painful, because we were still under the thumb of John Houseman and Michael Kahn and Margaret Harley and the people that trained us at Juilliard, which was also another, a brutal existence training these actors. But the business, there was an ideal instilled in us. There was a nobility instilled in us at Juilliard of a kind of theater that when I became a professional, the first 2 professional things I did bombed and were very bad emotional experiences for all involved. So I was hurt, I was angry, I was confused, I was a kid. To now, many years later, to see there's nothing different between then and now.
Yeah.
I can handle it better.
There was a dream that there would be repertory companies where you could actually, a classically trained actress could do classics.
Mm-hmm. Well, they tried to have one at it was called the American National Theater.
This is Peter Sellers in Washington. I was there.
Exactly. Yeah. And Peter, God bless him, because I think he's a genius, was in a corporate town, as Levi Chule was in a corporate town in Minneapolis. And I don't know whether the audiences were ready for the innovative thinking of those 2 directors. So the American National Theater at the Kennedy Center failed, and Levy's tenure, I don't know if he was a tenure, but at the Guthrie didn't last as long as it should, and both of those men should be directing in American theater right now.
But the fact is that you've done okay without it.
I guess, yes, I have, and I guess it's because I was born with a voice. I thank God every day I can sing.
And you knew that at 4?
I knew that very young. When I was very young, I knew that. My mother used to trip me out when I was about 3 or 4 to do Marilyn Monroe imitations.
Really?
I don't know where I picked that up, but Patty Ann, come here, do your Marilyn Monroe imitation. So they knew that I was, hell-bent for Broadway or hell-bent for show business. I started singing, I guess, fairly early. But the voice revealed itself, I think, in my teens, that it was a big voice. And I knew in my teens that it was a Broadway voice. Of course, I wanted to be a rock and roll singer. Who didn't? You know, we AM transistor radios at Jones Beach listening to, you know, Cousin Brucey, rock and roll. That was my influence. But I knew that it was a Broadway voice. And I knew I would end up on the Broadway stage. It's not necessarily where I wanted to go, but I knew that that was my destiny. At 15, 16 years old, wandering around an apple orchard on Locust Road in Northport.
In Long Island.
Long Island. Yep.
I was always surprised because I didn't really know you as a singer. You know, I really knew you as a classical actor. And so I would always be telling people, oh, no, she can do Evita, but you should see her do.
Thank you, Linda. Well, because with Evita, I went in as it was refreshing when I was cast because I went in as an actor, and when I left Evita, I came out as a fascist tap dancer. You know, there was no history of what I had done before Evita. It got obliterated by the role of Evita.
And it was very brave of Halprints to cast you, because didn't everybody want that role? It was they were going to do a star, and he's going to go and find a nobody. Of course, we already knew who nobody was, but
yes, at that time there was a lot of interest in it. It was phenomenally difficult. It is a phenomenally difficult role to sing. So, you know, even though it's a very powerful role and it's you know a great role to play on stage, I was scared every night of my life playing that part.
Does it seem odd that everybody thinks about you as having your arms up here like that?
Only mine are in the V. Up.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that.
And mine's the V.
The V one. The V one. And also, how many times do people say, "Don't cry for you"? Blah, blah,
all the time. And you know, and I'm grateful that I have a signature song. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah.
You know, I could go an entire career without having a signature song, and I have a signature song. Like I said, I thank God every day I can sing. Because, as you said earlier, it's very difficult even now, but especially now, for any of us to get employed, to be employed in theater. Very difficult.
That's the thing. You know, you and a handful of others, women, had you been born at an earlier time, would have had a consistent career of major roles to originate on Broadway. Do you feel like you just sort of were born a little bit late?
Yes. There's nothing more to say. Always. Yeah. Oh, a generation too late, 2 generations too late. Yeah. And now I feel like the kids that we're working with in Sweeney Todd, some of them are making their Broadway debuts, and I bleed for them because, first of all, this is the best experience they will have. This is the ultimate experience for all of us. Those of us, I'm the senior junior in the member. There's somebody in the company. There's somebody older than I am, and then I'm next. And we've had a career, though. These kids are just starting out. And if we are, and I love to say this, on the downside of our career, these kids what do they have to look forward to? This is the best experience they've had, and those of us that have had a career have had. So what do these kids have to look forward to? The business has been changing radically since I became a member, a professional up in this business. So I can't imagine where it's going from here. So I feel for the kids that are
Talk a little bit about this Sweeney Todd, which is directed by John Doyle, that he first did in London, and 10 people in the cast instead of 27, and you all play the orchestra. You are also the orchestra.
Yes.
You did actually play the tuba, didn't you, in the marching band at Northport? I
did.
Yeah. So you play the tuba and you play some
orchestra bells and triangle.
Yeah.
And cymbal.
And
I'm getting like Sheila E. out there. I wanted a whole percussion stand after a while. Bing, 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 bong, 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 bong. Anyway.
So, what kind of rehearsals were those? Really learning a different score. It is a different score in so many ways.
Well, John Doyle said that because someone asked him the question, how did he cast this? And he said he cast actors first because musicians would not memorize this music. Or not this music. Musicians wouldn't memorize music. We have one bona fide card-carrying member of Local 802, the Musicians Union, and that is John Arbo, who plays Fogg and is the bass player, the upright bass player. But I found in rehearsal, first of all, John Doyle is one of the very few directors I've ever worked with that knows how to rehearse a company. That is the key ingredient to creating an ensemble and having a production, his production, maintain a particular standard, how we are rehearsed. And we are extremely well rehearsed. And we were drilled, basically. We did it over.
Did you have a longer rehearsal time than usual?
5 weeks, but I think we have 5 weeks for Anything Goes, and we had a long preview period for Anything Goes as well. I think that's very smart of the producers to allow the companies to rehearse longer and to preview longer. Stanislavski says 21 performances and it's yours. That's 3 weeks of performances, 3 weeks of previews. But he really rehearsed us well. And the thing that I found was the music became an additional prop or an additional action. It wasn't music. If I had to move the triangle block for the coffin here and come back and hit the cymbal, it made sense in the entire section of that play.
You said on your website while you were doing rehearsals that I haven't felt this creative since I started to learn how to act.
It's true. John came to first of all, he trusted his casting. And then he came to us with love, support, trust, and respect.
Well, the other thing that you trust the audience to be able to fill in the blanks. There's no talking down to the audience in this production.
Yes, good, yes. There is a lot of talking down to the audience in theater today, but not in John's. John trusts. John is not a stupid man, and I don't think John wants to even pander to stupidity.
Yeah. And you're the first. You play Mrs. Lovett, who bakes people into meat pies and is in love with Sweeney Todd, the revenge barber, in Stephen Sondheim's masterwork. There, I've got it all in now. Okay, you're the first Mrs. Lovett I have ever seen who is sort of the anti. Angela Lansbury. Everyone else who she created the role and had her Pekingese hair and everything. You don't have the hair. You have a sort of goth look with your little leather thing. How did the look come about?
John designed it.
Yeah.
When Michael and I had our first sort of music rehearsal with John and David Loud, who assists Sarah Travis, who's the orchestrator. Yeah. David Loud is our musical director. He keeps the orchestra together. But we were checking keys, and it was in the summer before we started rehearsal, and John showed me the sketch and asked me if I had any objection. I went, oh my God, I haven't looked this good since Anything Goes. I thought it looked sexy. I thought it was wild, and I'm never one to turn down a dare. Or to, I walk the edge.
I mean, you are a roach ball in this thing.
Oh, yeah. But I've always said that I'm either falling into or crawling out of an abyss. I like the edge. Yeah. So that sketch was fantastic. And I didn't actually, when I played it with George Hearn in the concert version.
The New York Philharmonic?
I don't see her as a ditzy, frumpy woman, and perhaps Angela didn't, but Angela may have been harnessed by the costume. I don't know. I mean,
it's totally different time, also.
Yeah, but I never saw her as that. I always saw her as sort of a bloodthirsty, sexual woman. Bloodthirsty, but sexual woman.
And so you think Stephen Sondheim is sorry now that he never cast you in any of his shows?
I don't know, because he's seen me do quite a few of them at the Ravinia Festival.
I know. Well, you've done, now at Ravinia, you've done a number of the concert performances. But I gathered that they turned you down as Bernadette Peters' replacement, successor in as Dot and Sunday in the Park with George.
That broke my heart.
I could see why.
Broke my heart.
So, well...
Hey,
it's a revenge thriller, right?
But better late than never.
Yeah.
There's still more roles to play.
After Evita, there was sort of a big chunk of time when you couldn't get work.
Right. Well, no, I got work, but it wasn't the work my agents wanted me to do. David asked me to revive or reprise my role in The Woods. Yes, Livy truly asked me, while I was doing Evita, to come out to the Guthrie to play Rosalind in his production of As You Like It. And my agent at the time told me that I couldn't go off Broadway to replace Linda Kimbrough in David Mamet's Edmund because it would mess with my pay scale. And I went, well, I'm not going to sit home. And everybody in the business knows I have a relationship with this man, and that they didn't want me to go out to the Guthrie to do. They didn't want me to go to regional theater, having been on Broadway and, you know, the best part to come down the pike and the last decade. And I said, but I can't sit home waiting for the next best part.
And they were thinking about you as this Broadway baby kind of thing, as opposed to
what
actress.
I was before I went. That's what I was saying. Before I went into Evita, I was that person that would have worked with David Mamet, or did work with David Mamet, and, you know, wanted to work with Livy Trulet. It was that was my upbringing. That was.
So then you went to London.
Then I went to, yes, because I went to the American National Theatre.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
then I went to London.
Then you went to London, and in London you had this rare opportunity. You got double Olivier awards.
I got an Olivier for 2 roles.
For 2 roles,
right?
One was you created Fantine and Les Mis there,
right? And in 1985,
I think it's 5.
John
Houseman.
Did he revive it? No, he didn't revive. Well, he revived it, but had we done it before? No, we hadn't done it before.
Cradle of Rock.
We did a production of The Cradle of Rock, and the old Vic picked it up when it was the old Vic turned into a roadhouse. That broke my heart. But they brought The Cradle of Rock to the old Vic for a 2-week run, and I had done Oliver for Cameron McIntosh, and he saw me up in the Nancy outfit and thought Nancy Costume thought Les Mis would be a good match. I said, oh, when does that go into rehearsal? And he said, 9 months' time. I went, well, whatever. Then I'm there. They couldn't find a Fantine, and then they asked me to stay.
So you loved London for a while.
Oh, I love London.
And then is the Sunset Boulevard thing the worst thing you ever happened to your career?
My life, I think. My career, yeah. It was devastating.
This was, you had created the role in London, and
how they decided to fire me. It's the constant. They tried to get me off the stage. Well, this is the theory, that they tried to get me off of the stage so they wouldn't have to honor my contract. They were trying to get me to break my contract. So they tried to wear me down. That's what many people said. I was on every night getting standing ovations, and I was never in the press in London because I was doing my job. However well I could, given the material.
Sunset Boulevard, yes.
Exactly. And we all did our best. But there was because, I mean, this is a theory. I mean, everybody got it. Everybody got it. Kevin Anderson was fired. They never even talk about that. But everybody in the company in some way suffered at the hands of a certain individual and his company, because many people thought it wasn't the critical success that this person wanted. Whatever it was.
We do this person because there's a contract, a legal thing that says...
I just don't know whether I should or not.
That's okay.
It's clear it's that person.
It's that person.
Yeah. I don't know whether I can or not say his name. I mean,
so you got enough money, so you have a memorial swimming pool for him, right? Yeah. Memorial.
It was blood money. I got rid of it.
That's so fabulous. And did you also steal the turban and the dress?
Mm-hmm. I have the turban. I have the whole first act outfit.
Oh God, we should have had you wear it.
I have the shoes. I have the sunglasses. I have the full, and I have some other stuff. But what it was, I mean, I should have known in negotiations that it was going to be a terrible experience, because negotiations were bloody, and that should have been the indication. Now, years later, you realize, well, I mean, I operate off instinct. Mm-hmm. I always operate off instinct, and my instinct said, this is bad. But I went, and then, actually, I almost didn't go, but 5 trunks were sitting in London. I thought, I'll never get them back. And, of course, the irony is that just as I was setting foot on a plane to fly to London to start rehearsals for Sunset Boulevard, I was offered Fosca in Passion by Ira Weitzman at Lincoln Center.
That Sondheim's Passion.
And I almost, I just went, oh my God.
Yeah, every time you decide to leave a city, you find a boyfriend, right? Isn't that always what happens? Speaking of finding a boyfriend, so when you played Lady Bird Johnson so fantastically in that LBJ miniseries with Randy Quaid, I mean, really, how did you
God only knows
that lady? Anyway,
I was barely in the hair helmet.
It was. And your cameraman was this?
A camera assistant.
A camera assistant was this guy sort of attracted you, and you went and sat in his lap. And do I have the story right?
You do. Matthew, third stage of makeup.
Matthew Johnston.
Yes.
And you got married on the stage at Lincoln Center.
At the Vivian Bowman Theater, in the wedding position of the final position of the set of Anything Goes.
And then you guys moved out to.
We had moved out earlier. I had gotten this land from a family of somebody I went to Juilliard with, and because we made a promise to his mother that we would protect the land, and I bought it. Never thought I would do anything with it. It was 7
Connecticut?
acres. Yeah, it was 15 acres. You couldn't even get to because it was so dense and it was up on the side of a mountain. And I showed it to Matt, and he said, "Let's do something with it." So when we were both unemployed, we started to build. And then when we moved in, and then we had our first Thanksgiving. Then we got married. Then I got Life Goes On. So then we left
the TV series,
show.
Yeah.
So we left this house that we had just built and moved into.
And how old is your son now?
He's 15.
Joshua
Johnston.
And is I know he's been with you all the time in the theaters backstage. Is he a LuPone?
I think he's got a little LuPone. He's got a lot of Johnston in him, too. He's a big sports fanatic, too.
Yeah.
He's on the hockey team of the Gunnery. He goes to the Gunnery School in Connecticut. And he loves sports. He's very funny.
So you don't know if he's going to be in the biz.
Do you know what? He had his chart drawn up when I was out doing Life Goes On. The on-set dresser had his astrological chart drawn up, and the person said he would be a writer. Oh. And I kind of believe that. He's very poetic.
Now, a lot of arts going on in your family, beginning with your brother, Bob, who I knew as Bobby.
Bobby. Yeah.
Bobby LuPone, who's got a role in The Sopranos, but is also the artistic director at MCC Theater. And he had a twin brother, and the three of you did some sort of dancing act?
The Andre and Bonnie Dance Studio on Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. Yes, Andre and Bonnie. Bobby and I did a tango, and then Billy Bobby and I did an adagio waltz to Bella the Ball. Da-da, 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 up in the air. Da-da.
Did they just, the two of them would just throw you up in the air?
And sometimes when they were mad at me, they'd drop me. I can still see that studio in those times when they dropped me. Yeah, we had an adagio waltz. Billy is not in the business. I was sort of dragged into it.
And your great-great-aunt was
great-grandaunt
Adelina Patti, who was a super-duper star in 19th century coloratura.
Yeah.
And her last name is spelled P-A-T-T-I. Was there a...
My mother's maiden name.
Oh, okay. So were you originally a Patricia?
No, I'm a Patti.
You were a Patti.
I'm a Patti Ann. My mother's maiden name and my mother's sister's name, Ann. I'm Patti Ann.
Patty Ann.
Patty Ann.
No. Patty. Yeah. So is your life the kind, do you hang out with showbiz people, or you have this?
I don't have that many friends. Of the friends I do have, I've had for a very, very long time. And they are psychiatrists or lawyers or comedy writers or landscape architects or I don't really hang out with people in the business. Don't live in the city anymore.
So you're out there but you don't have the chicken farm anymore.
No, we don't have the chickens anymore.
Can you explain the chickens?
We had, we started out with 5. We had the fabulous Miller sisters, Pia, Marie Chantal, and Alexandria. And then we had Rita and Eartha. Then we had a terrible raccoon attack.
Oh.
So the fabulous Misfit Miller sisters were killed. And we had only Rita and Eartha and Foghorn Leghorn, the rooster. But that's my husband couldn't kill the chickens. I wanted farm fresh eggs. My husband couldn't. You have to cull a flock. You just have to. But he couldn't kill them. So we ended up having about 60 birds. but fantastic eggs. And then we had guinea fowl. And one day on our property, because we had a very, very long porch overlooking a hollow, I looked out of these big bay windows and I saw these guinea fowl. I saw the butts of guinea fowl up on the railing of the porch looking out at the view. And I thought, that's the clampets. It was just nothing but, you know, guinea fowl's tails. And going, oh, this is a better hen house than ours. It's got a view.
Now, John Houseman said to me, the first thing he said about you when we were both this big was that LuPone has the smell of the theater on her.
Are you sure it's not the smell of the gallows?
The smell of the gallows?
What is the smell of the gallows?
I kept sniffing around trying to figure out what. Do you remember him saying that?
Yes, totally, I remember that. Smell of the gallows.
Smell of the gallows. Well, it fits right in with Sweeney Todd, doesn't it?
I wish somebody could illuminate that expression for me.
You didn't ask at the time?
I did, and I think he went and walked away. But I don't know what the smell of the gallows means.
Anyway, there you are in Sweeney Todd with, you know, something equally bloody image, and our time is up. So, Patti LuPone, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Linda.
And thank you for joining us. On behalf of the League of Professional Theater Women, I'm Linda Weiner, and this has been Women in Theater.